Manx Radio's update with Lewis Foster.
Fastamai and welcome along to Update on Manx Radio. It's 5 o'clock on Wednesday the 23rd of April and time for half an hour of the latest news on and from the Isle of Man. Coming up, the Infrastructure Minister defends spending nearly £80,000 on a housing report despite not following its recommendations. And we also have an update on the bus service to Cregneash. There's more information on planned upgrades for Heysham Port. And 80 years on, we reflect on the devastating North Barrule Air Crash. All that and more coming up, plus the latest weather and sport for you, as well as what to watch out for on the roads this evening. Let us know your thoughts. Text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First of all, let's take a look at the latest headlines with Simon Richardson. Fastamai, Simon.
Fastamai, nursing staff are to be balloted over a range of potential percentage increases in addition to the 4% already awarded for 2024-25. It follows further pay talks between Manxcare and the Royal College of Nursing. A debate about a major overhaul of how Tynwald handles misconduct by its members has been pushed back to July. A report looking at members' standards and interests was due to be considered by the island's Parliament at this month's sitting. Plans include appointing a Parliamentary Standards Commissioner and allowing the public to raise complaints. The owners of Heysham Port are hoping its $10 million investment in the site will make its operations slicker. Peel Ports Group will be using it to enhance its capacity and operational efficiency. Port Director of Mersey Ports, Phil Hall, says he hopes it'll make a big difference.
For the users of the port, actually it'll be a lot slicker process and more efficient way of them picking up and dropping their trailers. So at present, for trailers going to the Isle of Man, they would be dropped off more efficiently because the systems would tell them where to drop and collect from. And it'll be an easy operation for all users of the port.
International news. A man's been jailed for 30 years for attempting to murder a 9-year-old girl 3 weeks after the killings of 3 other children in Southport. 29-year-old Jordan Wilkes researched child massacres before attacking his victim in the stairwell of his flat block in Dorset. The US Vice President's repeated America's threat to walk away from Ukraine peace talks unless what he calls an explicit proposal is agreed. J.D. Vance warns both Ukraine and Russia will need to make concessions. And scientists believe a toxin produced by E. coli could be driving up bowel cancer rates in young people. Earlier we heard of blood tests going through development which can detect a dozen cancers before symptoms appear. That's it for now. There'll be more news at 6.
Gruamayed. Thank you, Simon. Let's turn our attention to the weather now from the Ronalds Way Met Office, brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Continuing fine this evening, then dry overnight. Fresher east or southeast winds tonight with the minimum temperature around 7 degrees. Tomorrow will then remain dry with some early cloud cover, soon giving way to sunny spells. The moderate or fresh east or southeast winds will fall light or moderate. The maximum temperature tomorrow, 14 degrees. Cloudy on Friday with some outbreaks of rain developing. Sunset tonight is at 8:35. Sunrise tomorrow morning at 3 minutes before 6.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode Estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Beldorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company, Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
At Begode Cattery, we have been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cattery, we care for customers' cats and treat them as our own. Contact Begode Cattery on 676 947 or find Begode Cattery on Facebook.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And it's just coming up to 5:05. The infrastructure minister's defended spending nearly £80,000 on a housing report, despite not following its recommendations. In Tynwald, Michelle Haywood confirmed plans to set up a new government-led housing agency rather than an arm's-length association. She told the court she wasn't dismissing Altair's report, but said that it only presented one pathway and did not fully explore alternatives or evaluate all associated costs. Dr. Haywood says this new approach gives them time to consider the best ways to tackle some of the island's housing issues.
We said to Altair, go away and investigate what this looks like and come back with it. And that's what they've done. But it was quite clear when you went through that report that there were several options for delivering a housing association that weren't considered, which had made people understandably nervous. There was also a lack of consultation with the local authorities because although they were all written to, they were given literally a week to respond. And many local authorities only meet once a month, so giving them a week to respond to something wasn't acceptable at all. So a really low level of local authority feedback into that. And it created a huge amount of nerves with the local authorities who saw it as some sort of, and I think even Altair suggested it, that we could take over all the local authority social housing as well. And it looked like it was an empire building move. So Altair had investigated one model, and to be fair to the company, that's the model of delivering a housing association that they know. But that wasn't perhaps the report that we needed. So I wasn't around when that report was commissioned, but when you start reading through at the end of it, you end up finding some of the problems with it.
There are a number of public services, health, for example, that are run by arm's length organisations already without that political oversight. Why, for housing, is that so necessary?
Because I think housing is so fundamental to well-being for communities. It's one of the first things that everyone talks about on the doorstep. And I think there is an increasing nervousness amongst politicians about handing things over to arm's length where we don't actually have a steer on it. I was lucky enough to talk to my compatriots in Guernsey and Jersey recently, and they are struggling slightly with their housing association models where they've taken it out away from political control, because what the housing association wants to do is not necessarily what's aligned with the socio-economic goals of the government.
So in terms of where it goes from here, when will people of the Isle of Man actually start to see more affordable housing, more social housing available?
I mean, it takes time to deliver housing. We are working on the plans already. So having taken this through Tynwald yesterday, work starts on getting the agency set up, and I hope to have that in place before the summer.
Well, that was Infrastructure Minister Michelle Haywood speaking to Sean Cowper on Manx Radio Breakfast there. Whilst on air, she also said it's her intention to reinstate a bus service to Cregneash and the Sound. It's after Albury and Russian Parish Commissioners said it was deeply disappointed the number 28 service had been permanently withdrawn.
Obviously, we received a petition about this some months ago. I have been in contact with the group that have been trying to get this service reinstated, and I have every sympathy with them, and I do believe that we should be running a bus service up to Cregneash and down to the Sound. And I was expecting from my department that that was what was on the cards somewhere in the background. I've asked for a review of everything that's happened so far. I know that Russian and Albury Commissioners had offered some funding towards the service. I don't think that message had landed in the right ears in the department. So there's obviously some disconnect here between communications that have happened since last summer. And so I'm trying to unpick what that situation is now and to see how we can move forward.
So potentially then some wriggle room as we sort of head into the summer months.
It's the intention of the minister that we do everything we can to see if we can get some sort of service there. How quickly that can happen, because the summer bus timetable's already been published, and that means buses and drivers are committed to route. So how quickly that can happen, I don't know, but it is my intention to try and provide some sort of service down there.
So watch this space. Infrastructure Minister Michelle Haywood.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And it's 9 minutes past 5 now, and I'm joined in the studio by Manx Radio's Siobhan Fletcher. As we heard this afternoon, nursing staff are to be balloted over a range of potential pay increases, in addition to the 4% already awarded for 2024/25. Siobhan, faster my, what do we know?
Faster by. So, yes, Lewis, the news follows further pay talks between Manx Care and the Royal College of Nursing. Now, you might remember last month the union found that 70% of balloted members employed by Manx Care on the Isle of Man are prepared to strike over pay. The RCN has previously consulted with members regarding 2 pay offers from the healthcare body for this financial year, both of which were rejected. In addition, RCN members have expressed significant concern regarding the decision not to award the year's pay pay increases to individuals who have left the organisation after April 2024. To address this issue in particular, a question is included in the consultation to ascertain members' willingness to reject a percentage pay increase, even if it's otherwise acceptable, should Manx Care refuse to award back pay to the affected members. Now, in a statement, Simon Browse, who's the Regional Director for the RCN in the North West, says both the Royal College of Nursing and Manx Care are keen to find a way forward that's beneficial for all concerned. He says, however, we are clear that nursing staff have been historically undervalued and that they not only deserve pay which reflects the skill and responsibilities of their roles, but to ensure that patients are no longer being put at risk due to the staffing crisis on the island. He goes on, we would urge every member to have their say to help build a better future for nurses and patients on the Isle of Man. That new survey opened at midday today and will close in 2 weeks' time on Wednesday the 7th of May.
And we'll keep an eye out for that result. Thank you, Siobhan Fletcher. The time now 11 minutes past 5. The owners of Heysham Port are hoping its £10 million investment in the site will make its operations slicker. Peel Ports Group will be using it to enhance its capacity and operational efficiency. Port Director of Mersey Ports, Phil Hall, has been telling Amy Griffiths more about the work that's planned.
The 10 million in essence covers us expanding and reconfiguring the terminal at the Port of Heysham, but also putting in new technology, including a terminal operating system and a new gate operating system as well.
What kind of difference is this going to make to the people using the port?
That is the big change, actually. So for the users of the port, actually it'll be a lot slicker process and more efficient way of them picking up and dropping their trailers. So at present, for trailers going to the Isle of Man, they would be dropped off more efficiently because the systems would tell them where to drop and collect from. And it'll be an easy operation for all users of the port.
Why is it something that you wanted to invest such a significant amount of money into?
I suppose it's demand from our customers. So if you took two examples, obviously the Isle of Man steam packet have recently put a larger vessel on, so there's increased demand from there. And in addition, another of our customers, Stenaline, are deploying two larger vessels on the Heysham routes. So in essence, what we're doing is we're making better use of the existing footprint that we've got so that we can match landside capacity with the additional capacity that the vessels will bring across.
And will the biggest differences be noticed within, say, freight rather than passengers?
Yeah, so the operating system itself will be, it's mainly for freight, yeah. So investment in the port, so in terms of upgrades, will obviously aesthetically make it look better, but it will be mainly freight benefits that we'll see coming through the port and more efficiently.
And how long do you think the work's going to take?
It's got a 12-month programme, so it will be done in phases so that the disruption will be kept to a minimal. So there's 6 phases that we'll be doing the works over, and at present it's about a 12-month programme.
And you mentioned possible disruption, as there always is with these kind of schemes, but what kind of disruption might we see sort of over the next 12-month period?
Yeah, none to minimal. So the development gives actually additional capacity within the terminal. So we'll have the existing capacity available at any one time whilst we then do upgraded certain areas. So any interruption, certainly to passengers, will be none whatsoever. For hauliers, it will be minimal.
That's Phil Hall, Port Director of Mersey Ports, speaking to Amy Griffiths there. Now, a hustings was held last night for the residents of Ramsey to meet the candidates who are standing in Thursday's local authority election. 7 of the 8 prospective candidates were in attendance, and a Q&A session covered public toilets, community facilities, improving the town centre and flood defences. These residents said they were pleased to be able to speak to the candidates.
I had 3 points really for the commissioners. Firstly, have an increasing amount of mobile homes and caravans parked, which the commissioners supported last year. I'd like to see that kicked into touch. My second point was concerning the embarrassing lack of toilets for TT fans who round about Ramsey Parliament Square, and we've had Portaloos there for the last few years. And my final observation was that we have the Lickney Sports Field in Ramsey, which used to belong to Albert Road School. It's held by the Department of Education. It's needed by the youngsters in the Ramsey Football Club. The Department of Education are not cooperating, and I'd call on the commissioners to lean on them.
The DOI had put out a flood map which puts most of Ramsey at high risk of flooding, which certain areas of Ramsey, from like my husband's owned their family home for 90 years, has never flooded, but it's in a high risk tidal flood zone. And it's just that's going to affect people's insurance, reports, saleability and things like that, and it just is a little bit like, well, can the commissioners not actually go, well, hang on, we have surveys being done, or a DOI just doing what they normally do? It would be nice to know what it is.
Well, I'm a Ramsey resident in North Ward. I actually used to be in Legislative Council, so I have an interest in politics and local politics and national politics. So, as I said at the start of my question, it was great that there is an election, because anybody who is now elected has a mandate from the public. I'm interested in ideas to try and revitalise Ramsey. I'm interested in what young people think as well. When I see our demographic, I fit into the pensioner group, but we need to be planning for the future, for future generations.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Alright then, starting on the roads in Ramsey, temporary lights on Lazaire Road until tomorrow near Ramsey Grammar School for carriageway repairs, and temporary lights at the Bowring Road / Derby Road junction for gas main work as well. Near Mackle until the end of the week, temporary lights on the Coast Road at Corriney for work on the manhole covers, and in Santon, temporary lights on the Newcastletown Road near Mount Murray for resurfacing. The Spring Closed Circuit Series cycling event is on this evening in the Derby area, which means there'll be restrictions to traffic along a stretch of the Coast Road there, the Ballymona Road and the Ballyvarron Road between 7 and 9 o'clock tonight. Tomorrow, the TT course will be closed again from 9:30 to 4:30 between Bridge and Cronkervoddy Crossroads for TT preparation work. That stretch of the TT course will also be closed on Friday between 9 o'clock and 4:30 for the Manx Classic Hill Climbs event. Also for the Hill Climbs event, the Slock will be closed tomorrow from 9 o'clock until 5:30, and the Mountain Road will be closed on Saturday between Ramsey and just north of the Bungalow from 9 until 6. If you're travelling on or off island tonight, no problems to report over at the airport. And on the sailings, Manxman is returning from Heysham and will be arriving back here in Douglas at 6 o'clock. And Manannan is on her way to Liverpool. She'll be approaching the Mersey now, arriving at the ferry terminal there in around 15 to 20 minutes' time.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
17 minutes past 5. Words are not enough to thank the people of the Isle of Man for continuing to remember the North Barrule aviation accident in 1945. That's from a relative of one of the 31 men who died when a US military aircraft crashed into the hill on this day 80 years ago. Donald Mader's great-uncle Andy Peter Jr. was a technician and was 22 when he died in the tragedy. He says it's been emotional visiting the site of the crash for the first time.
His father really didn't want him to go, being an only son, and Andy felt obligated. Andy, through his money that he earned in the service, actually bought the house that we grew up in, and my parents still live there today. So it's truly an 80-year mark across the board. I really feel spiritually that he's guided me to so many interesting people and interesting places. And, he's been gone for such a long time. So I do feel a spiritual connection to him. And certainly so this morning as we look out across to the Irish Sea. So it's quite humbling to be standing here looking up at North Barrule.
How does it feel knowing that every year on the Isle of Man, every single year, that there is a memorial for them and people stop to think about them and remember them? How does that make you feel?
When I started researching, 3 of his sisters were still living. And this story came back home. And they were able to indulge in it, take it in, and realize that their brother will be forever remembered. And I don't know what else to say other than our hearts go out to the people of the Isle, and words are not enough.
That's Donald Mader there, reflecting on his great-uncle Andy Peter Jr., who was a technician and just 22 when he died in the North Barrule aviation accident in 1945, 80 years ago today. It's coming up to 20 past 5. The outgoing leader of Douglas Council believes candidates shouldn't lose their reason for standing when they join the local authority at the end of the month. Claire Wells says she's most proud of the working relationships which were built with different departments and organisations.
As leader of the council, I'm most proud of the collaboration of the members that are here, and I think nobody knew what was going to happen 4 years ago. We had very different personalities, but they've all come on a journey with me. I loved my time in housing, the way that housing has developed over the time that I've been here. It is just incredible, and the friendships and the working relationships that we have made with central government over the past 4 years and how we've managed to push things forward is actually phenomenal. And I think we're so quick to stand back and go, well, I didn't do this or we didn't quite achieve that. But taking a step back to seeing what we have achieved is really, really satisfying.
How would you sum up your time then on the council?
I don't think it is possible, because you have ups and you have downs, and sometimes the way that our brains work, we're so busy focusing on the downs and focusing on the little that we don't see the big. And I think what I would say to anybody coming in is don't lose your focus. Don't lose your reasoning for standing in the first place. We're here to serve. We're here to create spaces for children to play in, for clean, safe environment for everybody to live in. You've got a purpose.
What would you say to the people who are joining the local authority at the end of the month?
I think take your time to understand. There is nothing that happens in this council, whether it be in the council chamber or in an officer's office, that isn't very, very carefully thought out. There is no such thing as we just spend money for the sake of spending money, because we are more aware than what I think some people realise of the public purse, and the fact that on the whole, all the income we get is from the people who work in Douglas, live in Douglas, the businesses in Douglas, and that is at the forefront of everything we do. So don't think for 1 minute that that isn't at the forefront of what every officer here does, and that should be at the forefront of what you do.
That's the outgoing leader of Douglas Council, Claire Wells, there, speaking to local democracy reporter Emma Draper. The Chief Minister says although the US tariff threats have created an atmosphere of deep uncertainty, the island must hold its nerve. Alfred Cannon was questioned in Tynwald about the impact the tariffs will or could have locally. He admits that, at least in the short term, it will be worrying for certain sectors.
They will have taken a hit over the last couple of weeks. But we've seen this before, whether it be COVID, whether it be financial crises or various other events that take place. The markets take fright at times, but normally come back and we take a long-term view in terms of our investment policies. But what I would say is that actually, when you look back historically, from a private sector perspective, from a financial services perspective, there has been evidence actually in periods of global uncertainty. The financial services sector has actually benefited, whether that be increases in deposit bases or other opportunities that open up for investors. And of course, the private sector will be very carefully studying the impact of these tariffs. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of astute business people out there who are looking at the opportunities for their investment portfolios or where they may seek to be able to develop opportunities. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it is a negative. I think there is clearly impacts. I know that private pensioners with significant investments will be worried. I know investors in the stock market will be potentially taking a hit. I know obviously we'll be tracking things carefully from our perspective. But these are generally short-term impacts, and we do need to see how things play out over the medium to longer term. So we have to hold our nerve, and frankly, we need to control the things we can control. But in this particular case, we do not have any significant control at all over how these tariffs are being set, but we do continue to communicate with the UK.
So you're not intending to introduce a 100% tariff on American goods or anything like that?
Well, again, we have as much as I might wish to do that, we have a customs agreement with the United Kingdom, so we'll be working with our United Kingdom partners in terms of tariffs and customs and excise.
Chief Minister Alfred Cannon there. Turn our attention to sport now. As she enters her third season as a professional golfer, Island player Anna Dawson says she's continuing to take valuable lessons in the sport in pursuit of her way up the standings. With her 2025 Ladies European Tour season just getting underway, Dawson's been speaking to Manx Radio about her ambitions for the coming year.
Obviously, I've had 2 years as a pro now, and both seasons I've played quite differently in terms of the tours I played on and different routes I've tried to take to continue to pursue my goals and get to where I want to be. This year I will be playing on the Access Tour with quite a clear goal of trying to finish top 7 and get my full status for the Ladies European Tour next year.
Have you set yourself any specific targets, any specific events, or are you still keeping it relatively open like you have done the last couple of seasons?
I think the schedule, the way it's been planned by the tour, is pretty open. I mean, it's quite easy to play a lot of the tournaments. Nothing kind of really clashes. I think there's one long stint in a row where I might miss one event. But I think apart from that, I'm going to give every tournament a go. And obviously, I've played a few of the courses before, so that always helps knowing kind of where might suit me a little bit better. But I'm just excited to kind of take every opportunity as it comes. And I mean, I'm quite grateful. I think for 3 of the tournaments, I've got my little sister Leah on the bag. So they'll definitely be pinpointed as ones I would prefer to do well in, having her there with me helping out, but they'll just be good fun.
In terms of you progressing overall, what are the biggest things that you've learnt over the last couple of years? Not just being out on the course, but everything that goes around it, the logistics and so on.
Yeah, I think so much. I mean, this was the main thing last year. I played so much at the start of the year, and I think it was come July, I'd played more tournaments in the first 6 months of the year than I had the whole year before that. Learning to schedule things is huge, because how burnt out I got last year was crazy. And, you know, unless you put yourself in them positions, you don't learn these things. So grateful to have learned that lesson, and I'm sure I'm not going to do it again. I've got a couple nice holidays to try and break the season up and just put a big focus on and being fresh and ready when I am teeing it up this year.
The Isle of Man's Anna Dawson speaking to Manx Radio sports editor Rob Pritchard, who joins us in the studio now with the latest sporting news. Faster my Rob.
Faster my Lewis. Well, 3 days after lifting this year's ECAP FA Cup, Ayr United produced a stunning second-half comeback to beat Premier League champions-elect Peel 3-2 during last night's latest Isle of Man football fixtures. Elsewhere, Moran earned their first points in the league since November 2024 as they battled to a 3-3 draw with Foxdale in a match that had a last-minute change of venue due to Moran's home pitch being deemed unplayable. It was therefore moved to Foxdale's home of Billygoat Park. The other Premier League tie of the evening saw Russian United move into the top 5 with a comprehensive 3-0 win at St John's United. One tie also took place in Ardern and Drug Unlimited Division 2 on Tuesday night, with Douglas Royal and Pulrose United playing out a 1-1 draw. Well, matches are continuing this evening with 6 ties planned across the combination divisions, all kicking off at 6:15pm. Among those, Onken will be crowned Combination 1 champions with a game to spare should they win at St John's United later. Meanwhile, Isle of Man cricketer Lucy Barnett has set multiple women's T20I international cricket records this week. Following the Isle of Man women's team's participation in the Cyprus Quadrangular Series on Easter weekend, Barnett has become the fastest women's T20I player to reach 1,000 runs. Her record of reaching that target in 26 innings is quicker than the previous record set by Tanzania's Fatuma Kibasu of 30 back in December 2022. Furthermore, at the time of this publication, Barnett now also tops the women's T20I international standings for the highest career batting average in T20 format of 59.64. And in addition, Associate Women in Cricket reports the Island player is the youngest to reach 1,000 T20 runs at 18 years and 196 days. And also tonight, multiple New Zealand Superbike and Formula 1 Superbike champion Mitch Rees will make his Isle of Man TT Races debut this year. The 32-year-old will ride the Malenko by Paget's Motorcycles Honda Fireblade machinery in the Senior, Superbike and Super Stock classes.
Rob Pritchard. Goromaya. That's it for Update tonight. Howard Kane is here next with Spotlight, and Chris Kinley is here at 6 with Greatest Hits. Remember, you can listen back to tonight's programme as a podcast, available shortly over at manxradio.com. Have a good evening. Update will be back at the same time tomorrow.